And our guest tonight is Chisoni, Executive Director of Higher Education Student Loans and Grants Board, HESLAG. Most welcome to the program Capital Spread Talk here on Capital FM.
Thank you very much.
We are meeting for the first time since you left CCJP, where you served as National Coordinator for at least 10 years. Am I right?
Yes, that's very true.
What kind of a legacy do you think you left at CCJP?
It's challenging for myself just to say the legacy that I've left, knowing very well that people have different lenses of assessing how things were. But I think one thing I'm certain of is that I took CCJP for the past 10 years from the point it was only dealing with issues of elections and issues with the paralegal to a level where it majored in dealing with issues of socioeconomic and political governance. As such, the assessments, the studies we were doing were more strategic and then influenced quite a lot of mindset shift in most citizens. You know, dealing with Malawian leadership, dealing with citizens, it meant the engagement process must be from a perspective where people knew clearly if they want to blame an MP, they must blame him when they know the true roles of a member of parliament. If they don't, you must provide the civic education. So we embarked on very different, diverse programs dealing with the provision of civic education to citizens across the country, purely to ensure that there is a responsive, accountable, transparent leadership in this country.
Now, did you leave CCJP a contented man?
I left CCJP with two feelings. One, sad, and I'll start with the sad part of it.
Why sad? You didn't choose to leave CCJP?
No, it was a choice. But it's the work that I enjoy most doing. Trust me, I enjoyed working in the CCJP big time.
Why did you leave it anyway?
10 years is quite a long period of time. Strategically, I have also to consider about my own future. I need to have a diversified experience. I will not sit and say I've accumulated 20 years experience.
Are you telling me there was no future at CCJP?
There was a future, but I am saying now, I'm strategically...
What kind of a future are you talking about here?
For example, if I'm 40 years old, then 50 years I need to check what is it that I'm going to leave my family for at the age of 50.
There's no money at CCJP?
There was money. I was paid. I lived my life, but maybe I needed more. Yes, so it was purely personal reason.
But then there were rumors when you announced your departure at CCJP. People said, no, Mr. Chisoni has been poached by the government to take up this role. Were you poached from CCJP? Because that time you were very critical of the government. Were you poached, Mr. Chisoni?
If you understand very clearly my approach to governance, political economic governance issues, I've never been personal. I've never used any vocabulary either in public statements, media statements, or any commentaries on radio or TV to attack an individual. I made an analysis critiquing government, governance systems and structures, even citizens themselves. As such, I was doing a very satisfying job that fulfilled my soul, that I saw people demanding.
In terms of what?
Now that meant one, for example, citizens themselves demanding accountability from their leaders. You remember we had a robust program dealing with MPs, and it reached a point where some MPs were afraid. The period 2004 to 2009, I made a lot of enemies with MPs because I took right information to these constituencies, and they had the right systems in place to track the levels of accountability, and that's what I used to do most. And secondly, we entered into the mining governance sector, which was untapped before, and we designed different mechanisms and strategies how local citizens would engage extractive industry investors. When the government has opened up so that people should invest in mining, no one cared about the communities. So you heard stories about Kairekera, you heard stories about Kanyika, you heard stories in Mulanje, so many stories. And we made that robust system where citizens started engaging the investors and the government. And that's what has been bringing me satisfaction.
All right. Before we look at your role at the Higher Education Students Loans and Grants Board, you've talked about the issue of money here. How much were you getting at CCJP and how much are you getting now at this board?
That's a personal question. However, I would say there was no Catholic market anywhere. As such, I was living in a competitive world, in a competitive city that I needed to earn a living.
That's Lilongwe.
Yes.
Mr. Chisoni, you're currently handling the issue of loans to needy students. How is it going?
It's a new, fresh territory altogether. But at an infant stage, 3 months growing up, people shouldn't expect us to be running whilst we're growing. We must crawl at each very important stage. But I can tell you we're putting in place robust systems and procedures and mechanisms that we ensure that access to higher education by needy and deserving students is done and is fulfilled. Our mandate as per the Act of Parliament of 2015, number 2, is to allow us to access funds from government or borrow money from financing institutions on behalf of government upon approval of the Ministry of Education as our parent ministry and upon approval from Parliament, so that we can finance higher education, access to higher education by needed and deserving students. So you should underline those.
Where exactly do you get your funds from? Is it the government or financial institutions?
Well, but we are under Ministry of Education, just like my National Examination Board is, just like the National Council for Higher Education is. Parastato is a quasi-government institution, as of now fully funded by government.
In short, you get your monies from the government?
Yes.
Now, you have underlined the word needy and deserving students. Thank you. But now we have heard reports of some undeserving students found on the list of those to benefit from all this. How is it possible?
This is possible because it's a part of human nature. You just made reference to Panama leakages here, and I would take you back to that to say we used information as provided by the applying students on their loan forms. And the board was put in place in August 2015. The act was put in place in March 2015. The secretariat was put in place in November with me as a first individual. In between, there was an interim secretariat that was handling this, which had its core functions. Malawi University Development Program, MUDEP, responsible for totally different mandate altogether, but they were given this responsibility to manage the process. So definitely should expect they were overstretched and worked sometimes under pressure, meaning the systems and procedures at that particular point in time had not yet been established, other than to screen the information that the students had provided in their forms, on an assumption that students who apply for the loans will be honest. As such, anybody who was found undeserving but was given the loan means he or she falsified the information. And actually, according to our act, it is illegal. That person can be charged. And I would also hasten to say we deleted those names. Immediately we knew. The process is very simple. The secretariat screened the names, made the proposal to the board, and the board sent these names to the colleges and universities across the country for the administrators there to vet the names, to find out, are these names, for example, are the students continuing, or some have been withdrawn? In simple language, they say they've been weeded, isn't it? Are they continuing? If the answer is yes, okay. Are they deserving students? Character-wise, not only need-wise, but character-wise, we don't want to support the drunkards. We don't want to support vagabonds. We want to support the citizens who are going to be responsible.
So are you sure you don't support drunkards?
No, if they are drunkards, it meant the system didn't pick that.
But how independent is your board? Because most of the times we hear that those you pick as beneficiaries are children, for example, of politicians, ministers.
It's not true. It's not true. The board has only done one screening, so there's no reason for any hasty generalization. To argue strongly, there is no basis to make an argument. I mean, actually, even in any research, there's a margin of error +3 -3. People shouldn't assume that this board will act like a god and do everything 100%. We can assure you 98% perfectness of our data and our material and our information that we'll be able to provide to this country. In any case, Malawians should appreciate that the establishment of this board is one of the components of the reforms agenda of this current government, and it is there to finance needed deserving students. But you should know, if you have read so many newspapers articles, you go back into history, you realize that a lot of students have been abusing this, and they're morally irresponsible for not having paid back, because the fees at that time were 360 kwacha, 260 kwacha. The fees this time...
We'll look into that in a moment, but my question is still on your capacity to scrutinize those that apply for these loans. Do you have strict measures to make sure that this is not abused?
Maybe what should happen is now, since I've said we were at an inception phase, we have only done one screening. We need to own it up. The minor percentages of mistakes that have happened would happen anyway, because I've said there were false information that was provided by the applicants. And I thought one thing that would have happened would have been to go back to the colleges and say, how did this administrator allow this name, for example, a daughter of a university lecturer at Chancellor College, to proceed on the loan list? How would you feel if a needed deserving student is withdrawing because has been given half of the loans, half of the money is needed for his or her school fees, yet somebody deserving who is driving a personal car going to the university has been found on the list and you don't say it? I would want to use some theological terminology here. In sinning, they say there's a sin of omission and a sin of commission. If you know willingly that something is wrong and don't say it, you're omitting your responsibility to promote accountability and transparency. So we did our part and we sent these files to the various colleges and universities. But you should understand, the secretariat wasn't there yet. I was employed in November 15th.
So far, for a start, how many students have you supported or have you helped?
4,600 something out of 10,000 something applicants. And 7,000 something were needed and deserving. But we didn't have the money. We were given 1.5 billion Malay budget to establish the secretariat. That is to identify offices, because this is coming out completely out of blues. Just find offices, pay for rentals, hire, recruit people, pay.
So where are your offices?
They're in Area 10. If you come to Area 10 after Malawi College of Accountancy, there's Area 10 PTC, there is in Ponongo Street there. Just less than 200 meters, you find us.
Mm-hmm. You've touched on some students who benefited from such an initiative way back for the past decades, but they have failed to pay back those loans. Is there any hope that that money will be realized?
Very much so, unless they're dead. Very much so, unless they're dead. As I'm speaking now, our other members of staff in the college is collecting data. We have data available. We are collecting more data to make sure that this is going to be used to track this. What we don't know is where they are. You understand? What we don't know is who has employed them. And part of our processes in the recovery process, that's why you might have seen the media statements, the TV interviews, the radio interviews, and our director of loans is doing quite a lot to make sure that she's reaching out to many. We are visiting human resource managers in different institutions, big employing institutions, and that's because we want to talk directly to people to give them the human face.
Are you telling me that they are not forthcoming to say, here I am, I benefited and I'm ready to pay back those ones?
They are forthcoming. Actually, it is overwhelming. Within 2 weeks, we have gotten over now 500 checks. People who are trying to check into our system how much we are owning them. And I mean, if you take 2 weeks and remember that this has been accumulating from 1985, it tells you that the strategies were put in place are better, because the compliance levels just within 2 weeks are alarming. We are going to recover the money. And whosoever owns government money in the name of students' loan scheme should have obligation. There is law in place. I made a reference to Act number 2 of Parliament. They can look for it. If they can't find it, we'll be running a series of columns in the newspapers where we run this. We might have some radio programs where we highlight the penalties that are in there if a student who benefited from the loans before has opted to remain silent. That's the first thing. Secondly, if the employer does not disclose that in his institution or her institution there are former university students who benefited from the loans, the law is very clear what is going to be done. I can give you that example, that it means every employer will have to pay on the head of an employee who hasn't said that I owe government loan 1 million Malawi kwacha.
1 million Malawi kwacha.
Yes, and that is enforceable. However, we have not gone the legal way now, because we are saying before this, the legal and the technical systems were not yet put in place. As such, we don't have to start from an antagonistic perspective. We must appeal. These people have always been willing. People have been talking in different platforms that they want to repay their loans, but where do they do so? If you remember the history of Malawi very well, that once upon a time there was a public university students loan trust. This started the recovery process, but it got defunct along the way before it reached the stage where it could do its noble cause. One of the critical challenges was that there was no legal framework in place, so a lot of its activities would have been challenged in the court of law. And now we have an act in place. As such, if we will be taken to court, we'll be taken to court, but we'll be using our act and as a source of evidence that this is what is guiding our operations. So any student who is alive, whether it's in Malawi or is not in Malawi, will be tracked. Very soon, I just want to add, we have a World Bank supported component of capacity building that is going to build up a system that we're going to link ourselves with ESCOM, water boards, immigration and road traffic, a National Council for Higher Education and the universities. So it means our system will be able to be picking. If somebody is looking for a driving license at road traffic, but is owning a salon, until we clear him, no license will be appear. You have bought your house, you're looking for an ESCOM meter or water meter. If you have a loan with us, if it's not cleared, you won't access that service. That's where we are heading to. So I've said a lot of people will be complaining now because they've chosen to run before us are prepared to run. We are growing, not by choice, but growth is gradual. You know, we will be moving step after step moving forward.
Today in the program, I'm talking to Chisoni, Executive Director of Higher Education Students Loans and Grants Board, Hezla. When you check your information, how much are these students owing the government in terms of those loans that they got?
The data that we have, we are talking of 1.7 billion Malay Bacha. But there is more. There is more. That is why I have said the other teams, members of office, moving around in the colleges. Remember, some time back there was only Chancellor College, Bunda, Polytechnic, and the KCN, and that's where much of the data of the 1985, 86 is. And you should now remember, technologically, that time we had no computers. It means you're looking at hard files. Until we automate them, we will be able to also say, now this is the picture that we have. But holistically, you need to notice that as we're going back into the old years, you realize that the money is of lesser value. However, the principle we're using in saying still pay back is that a loan is a loan. It wasn't a grant. And that the need of students now that our mandate crosses both public and private investors is so enormous. If you heard me, I said over 10,000 students applied, 7,000 were screened and found needy and deserving, but only gave to 4.6 million. About 37% of needy deserving students, we didn't give them the loans. So it means there is still a challenge, and so many appeals are coming to our offices, more students that are withdrawing, because we didn't even give anybody 100% of the fees that she or he applied for, because we would have given to lesser students. So the moral obligation of appealing to former students to pay is to increase it as a net result effect of increasing the threshold of the current needy students who will apply. For example, this year we are expecting, the 2016-17, we're expecting over 15,000 students to apply. And let's assume that all of them 15,000 students are deserving. You know, we might need the 4.5 million Malay Bacha.
But do you have the money in place?
Yeah, we depend on the government. We have prepared our budget this year. We submitted to government and it will be discussed in Parliament. But we have also diverse means. For example, that's why we are, we are talking of recovery now, because once we have, once we have recovered certain substantial amounts of money, that will help us to subsidize whatever government is giving us.
Well, people say that another challenge is how expensive higher education has become in the country. They are saying that it is unnecessarily exorbitant. How do you look at that? Because people view it as a challenge on your part as well.
Yes, that's why it is a reforms agenda, minus that it is the purpose and the intention of government to provide the higher education. And higher education, no matter what, is expensive. It is expensive. But the opposite of it cannot be taken not to be expensive at all. If you want to have an illiterate nation, you know how chaotic it's going to be. You know how certain things are not going to happen. The global world demands technocrats who are conversant with the different fields that later on can help to transform economically this country, even the politics of this country. As such, higher education can be expensive. I don't think it's a political tool. No, higher education will be expensive because we are having lecturers that are doctors and professors. They will need equipment, books to teach, so it won't be simple at all. So as such, I think Malawians should move slightly beyond mere complaining on trivia.
On trivia?
Exactly, because I am saying to pay 270,000. You know a good number of Malawians that can afford to pay 270,000 to their 2 years old girl to kindergarten, and then when that person goes to the university, they start complaining. I am saying it's the value system. We need to appreciate that government won't do everything. We need to also appreciate that university education is going to be expensive.
You've told me that you've just managed to assist about 4,000 students. Now, why are you looking for about 15,000 applicants this time around?
Okay, because every year students will be applying for the loans. It's not that somebody has been granted a loan today, therefore next year is automatically given the loan. No, it's every year. The definition of a needy student is evolving, because today one can have parents who are employed are working, have paid fees. Tomorrow they are no more there. So we would give chance to those people to apply. That's why the application process will be done every year. Somebody today can apply as a needy student. Tomorrow, one rich philanthropic family from America is paying his or her fees. In turn, that person stops being needy.
But did you check on them to say, we left this student last year, but indeed we found out that they were needy?
We will, and according to our calendar, we have a space after an initial screening where we are going to have an appeal stage. An appeal stage is when the first results of needy students approved by the board have come out, and we give it 1 month for those that think they deserve and have been left out to bring back their cases, and the board will listen to them. This year we did that. We produced the first list and we produced a supplementary list. The issue is how information trickles. But now that the Secretariat is fully fledged, there are different people responsible for different parts of this whole story. There is no stone that is going to be left unturned. And trust me, we will go all the way. I can assure you 98% we will go to get right needed, deserving students who access the loans. Because this time around, we are going to do the vetting with the colleges. We will visit them. That time, it wasn't possible. This time, we visit the colleges and even the student union leadership will be there to check each name if it is indeed needed and deserving. And once we find there's a falsification of information, the law applies immediately. So he who will get a loan this year, a loan application form, and he gives us false information, is choosing to waste our time, then we take him to court. And she will be responsible for the payment of the court proceedings and charges. That's how we are. But then we choose deliberately not to deal with the law and appeal to the moral responsibility and consciousness of the students, that those are in the universities now, to say they should be honest enough to say, I don't deserve to be given a loan, or I deserve only 20% because my parents can afford this, so that we help the neediest of the neediest. It's very important. And you shouldn't forget, we are a loans and grants body. There should be space also for giving out the grants. The ministry is just in the process of formulating a policy that will identify how these grants will be administered.
Now, how do you look at the future of these loans and grants board? Because a lot of issues are involved. We talked about the issue of money here, capacity building, and there are people out there who say that you might end up being a briefcase institution.
Yeah, you see, some of them are flames and laughable. Trust me, the people should be fair enough. When they don't know, they better shut up. If they know, they should only say...
What do you think they don't know? What do you think they don't know?
We are only 3 months old, man. And 3 months old, no one would claim that they understand us. That's why, for example, people are calling us National Council for Higher Education. That's the first indicator. It tells you. And we are very patient and calm to say, we will explain ourselves. We will put ourselves there. On the social media, we put ourselves there. In the newspapers, we put ourselves on the radio, on the TV. People will know us.
So you're not already on social media as we're talking now?
No. We are building our systems and we are in the papers. You might have seen our statement.
So how long are you going to build yourself as loans and the grants board?
To build such a system, it will take 3 months, 90 days, solidly, seriously. The National Examination Board has been here from time immemorial.
Well, how long should we give you to establish yourself as
You want me to be very exact?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. By August, give us time. By August, we'll be done.
By August this year.
The first litmus test that you're going to give us is the selection list.
But now, I did ask you about political interference in all your operations. Yes.
Just about that. We are accountable to the parent ministry, Minister of Education. And under the Minister of Education, there's the Directorate of Higher Education, which is well established with professors and doctors in there. And there's no politician. That's our first line of accountability. We have the board put in place with the different professions, different backgrounds, lawyers, auditors, academicians, they're in there. Their oversight role, policy direction role is also directly there. These are mandated to meet every quarter to discuss issues about the board. And nothing here I'm saying is outside what they mandated us to do and to say. Other than that, through us, the Minister of Education is supposed to give annually reports in Parliament of the operations of this body. So definitely should trust.
Do you think this should assure people listening to you now that there is no such interference, political interference in all your operations?
One, the students as they're applying on their own. No one knows who's applying. That's the first thing. The forms are not left in political party offices. The forms are left in the university campuses. Now how political interference comes in, I don't know. Because we get also the grants, not the grants, but the funds in the different stages of disbursement. In any normal way, any government institution is receiving funding. In actual case, we have been mandated to go beyond that and look for resources elsewhere. For example, we have chosen as the first stage to recover so that we increase the threshold of support of the needy students. We will be publishing the names of the students that have been granted the loans in each year, so that there isn't any doubt. If you see the name of a daughter or a son of Mr. Chisoni, then you can start saying so. But if you see a name of somebody whose name resembles a minister's name, as a journalist, you must do your research first to find out, are they related or not? Most of my names are the same. In my life, I've met Chisoni and has over 20 of them, but different. Some are women, some are men. But somehow we just need to be careful. But an assurance to the nation that the board is there to fulfill its core mandate to help needy, deserving students. And we should underline that. And as such, we listen to so many stories. I wish someday we have a media tour to our office, and you should see. Only that now, since we have developed a properly defined calendar with events, such type of occurrences won't happen. But not that, she runs the office as a clinic. Today somebody comes in our office, she's shedding tears. Her daughter is being withdrawn from college, and somebody wants to collapse in the office. I'm saying, we can't handle this.
As a clinic?
Yes, as a clinic, yes. It's like
almost treating patients.
Yes, so we are saying we are committed, and the team that is there is very committed. Trust me, it's a diversified team from different backgrounds, from different histories, from different ethnic groups, but professionally assembled to deliver. And that's why I'm saying by August, come back again with some questions, and we should speak from there.
Tell me, sir, but before we go, for how long are you staying with this board, or is it open until you decide to go?
No. Legally, I have a contract for 5 years that is renewable once. I've told you it's a statutory cooperation. It means if I can only work for 10 years. Once that is done, if I may wish to, then I proceed from there. Yes.
Do you see yourself returning?
Now that fits exactly with the 50 years I was talking about.
Do you see yourself returning to CCJP after your 10 years at this board?
At that stage, no, I don't want any public life.
No more public life?
Yes, I think I've got enough of it. 10 years, if you imagine all this we are doing now goes again into another 10 years. It means we're singing the same song for 20 years of my life.